Join us for Two Guys on a Porch, where we're not guys. We're two blind pigs trying to see if we can distinguish between George Dickel and Four Roses Super Premium. Join us.
Welcome to Two Guys on a Porch. I'm Jason. This is Bradford. As always, we have my hunting dog, Kimber, with us. We're again in the barn because it's a rainy summer afternoon. A lot of rain in Middle Tennessee this year, but that doesn't stop us from sitting on the porch or in the barn this time. Again, enjoying fellowship sticks, or we say fellowship sticks because we can't say the word C-I-G-A-R. YouTube doesn't like that word, so fellowship sticks is what it is. Drinking a glass filled with something with the flavor of friendship. Tipping our hat in honor to our good friend Jason Rogel of Guidance Whiskey. Really love that stuff, but he's the one who gave us that moniker. But again, we're here in the barn having a great time, enjoying life and enjoying our fellowship together. What have we got today?
Well, first of all, these Partagas 160s. That's what we're smoking.
Yes.
They are amazing cigars. You've had these for an eon.
These are like some of the cigars I bought literally like 10 years ago.
They were released in 2005, so it's possible you bought them 20 years ago.
Yeah, and so I put them away in a drawer and forgot about them. Literally forgot about them. Didn't realize they were there. Recently discovered them as I was cleaning up.
Fortunately, it was a treated drawer.
Yeah.
They're not been sitting out in the sunshine.
No. It was these actually came in individual glassed containers. I don't know what you would call that. But they're individually packaged, so they're not dried out. They were in a humidor in the drawer. And so trying to be the dutiful husband and clean up my junk, I discovered them, and I was like, oh, yeah, we can smoke those on the cast.
Yeah, I'm going to leave the clean up your junk comment alone, and we're just going to go with that has to do with cigars and not other personal hygiene comments.
I'm not going there, but but I will add, I got a lot of junk.
I have no idea if that's a true statement or not. But yeah, and shout out to our friends at Mission Cigar and Social, where we procure most of our cigars. But since we are going through your junk of cigars, we're glad to pull these out of the drawer. And I remember back in the day, I called you from a cigar shop and said, "Hey, they've got some 160s here," and they were the Robusto size. And you were like, "Buy the box," and I'm like, "Okay." And we smoked those together. You were gracious to share those. And so, yeah, I feel like we're pulling a little bit of nostalgia out to smoke these today.
It's investment. It's like when you go to the grocery store, go to Publix, and they got the buy one, get one free, and it's some non-perishable item. You go ahead and like take the whole shelf and you just put it away. You save money. You'll get to it 10 years later, but yeah, you save money that way.
Yeah, these are amazing cigars, and I've been smoking this for a few minutes even before we started filming, and if you're listening, you can't quite get the sense of it, but I just want to say, look at my ash.
Yeah.
I have quite an ash.
You got a Churchill ash.
So, yes, admiring my ash on the podcast today.
We got that's another thing for an episode for those watching it would appreciate. We got to do the Churchill trick and stick the pin in there.
Yes.
And just see how it goes, and everybody will be watching and just waiting with anticipation for it to drop in the ash to drop in their laps.
That's right. I may try that with this one to see where we get. I'm excited about our topic today.
Yeah.
So we're talking about how to define success, just in general. But I think our bent on that, as we are a little bit advanced in age in the professional world.
Seasoned,
yes. We may have a different take than we would have 10 years ago or 20 years
Absolutely.
ago or 30 years ago, 50 years ago. That would have been when we were answering the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you want to be a physician at 5 years old?
Yeah, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. Not at 5 years old, but 12.
Early. Really?
Yeah, pretty young.
Were you influenced by someone?
Yeah, I think most people are that way, but I certainly was. Shout out to Dr. John Robertson. He was the chairman there at UT Sims Murphy Clinic. His daughter and myself were in the same school together.
Okay.
Grew up with them, and our families. I specifically remember the time we at end of the year, high school. School's out. There for Memorial Day. All the families, several families, not all families, but several families, we would go out for the weekend to Denby Point. It's a lake in Arkansas, or that location's a point on a lake in Arkansas, and we would rent out. It was nothing fancy, just we did little cabins there. The families would rent out the cabins. We would rent ski boats, and we would ski for the weekend, hang out. And so there I was hanging out on a porch with Dr. Robertson, and him tell me what he did, and it inspired me, and the rest is history.
Yeah, because I think I've asked you this. My wife's father was a neurosurgeon
Right.
in Memphis, where you also grew up. She did as well. So Dr. Grant was practicing there in 70s, 80s, and 80s, but you didn't have any exposure or knowledge of him.
No, he was before my time, yeah. But certainly John Robertson and his brother before him, JT, are legendary in Memphis for neurosurgery. They are, if anybody connected with neurosurgery or medicine in Memphis at all would know the Robertson family.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So if we look back and say, hey, when you were 12 years old, you wanted to be a neurosurgeon. So check, success.
There, I just dropped my ash. For those not watching, the ash fortunately missed my lap and hit the ground. Sorry, I interrupted.
When I was 9 years old, I memorized all of the presidents in order and their terms of office.
Wow.
Now, at the time, Ford had just become president. So I had this little toy set that I still have, but it had through Nixon, and they quit making them, so it's still just through the 37th president. But I still know all of the presidents and their terms of office.
You really should have been the historian. You really like history.
Well, I wanted to be president. That was kind of at 9 years old, if you'd asked me what I wanted to do. And you know what? I'm not giving up on that.
There you go.
It still could happen. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, the last two we've had are right at 80 years old. So why not, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dream the dream.
Yeah.
But the question would become, if I don't get there, does that mean my life has not been a success? I mean, that's if we're looking at childhood dreams not realized, do you say failure or success based on that benchmark? The conclusion I would come to is certainly not.
Yeah.
And what we're drinking today is we have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see a bottle in front of us. I see glasses poured with beautiful amber-colored, presumably whiskeys, not colored water. And we have to guess what we're drinking.
Yes.
Not entirely. We're drinking Four Roses Super Premium, as well as George Dickel 17-year-old, which, frankly, I'm thrilled to try. George Dickel, which is made by Cascade Hollow Distillery, it's owned by Diageo. And they got a master distiller, Nicole Austin, back in 2018. And she took a bottom shelf brand, George Dickel, and transformed it. She's a chemist by trade and training, and this was her third distillery. First one is the master distiller, and she has done some amazing things. And the 17-year-old, which I have wanted to try, $2.50 a bottle, that's on the shelf.
Yeah.
So, and you can find it. It's not unattainable. It's just expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled to try it, and we're going to compare it and see if we can figure out which one is which between that and the Four Roses Super Premium.
And neither one of us have had either one of these
That's right.
bourbons before.
I've had Dickel, I've had Four Roses, but neither of these expressions.
Right. The Super Premium is more of a import. You just lost your ash.
Lost my ash.
Yeah. But Churchill would have been proud with that.
It was a good ash.
So like Blanton's does it. I think a lot of distilleries do this, is that different people have different tastes, different palates, especially in other countries. And so this was meant for an international market, even though it was produced here. It was meant for overseas. And so you typically don't see that on a shelf here in the U.S. I got this through a guy who got it from a guy, but it was basically shipped in from an international location.
Yeah, and Four Roses has 6 expressions of whiskey, 4 which are readily available in the U.S., 2 which are made specifically for the Japanese market, to your point about being international. They're owned by Kirin, Kirin. They were acquired in 2002, and Four Roses has been through a number of ownership changes since their founding in the 1880s. And apparently the Japanese market likes a little more subtle flavors. And that would match considering that they really started doing Scotch. And I've had some of the Japanese Scotch whiskeys, which are phenomenal. And the experts say because of the climate and they've got mountainous areas, that it is as close to Scotch from Scotland as any attempt in the world.
Yeah.
And, Scotch doesn't have a lot of different flavor profiles. It's pretty clean. It's pretty basic, if you will, in its flavor. So that subtlety that I think they would be interested in from a Japanese standpoint is going to be what we find here. So if I'm thinking 17-year-old whiskey, I'm going to guess that's going to be a little stronger, a little more oaky, probably a darker color.
Yep.
And that Four Roses, we're looking for subtlety if we're trying to guess the difference between the two.
Totally agree. I think, as you talk about Japanese whiskeys, that's definitely something on our to-do list for future episodes. I knew nothing about them. I'm just trying to learn about really American whiskeys and to a certain degree Scotch whiskeys. But yeah, so that would be a different venue to go into. That would
we've done Indian. We've done Indian whiskey.
It'd be exciting. Yeah,
we've done Scotch. We do a lot of bourbon. We do Tennessee whiskey, which apparently is bourbon according to some federal standards. But I'm going to hold out and say it's not bourbon, but whatever. But yeah, I think trying some Japanese whiskeys would be really fun. So let's jump into this. We're going to try the first one.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to guess before I taste is the George Dickel because it's darker.
Yeah, you don't have to go out on a limb there. I would be shocked and amazed if this turns out to be the super premium because the color is a dark amber. It looks like a 17-year-old. Sometimes that can fool you. Sometimes we've had whiskeys before that were aged that just did not have that dark note to it, but this one does.
Now, I will say it's pretty subtle on the nose. I pick up fruit immediately, which I was surprised by. So it's got a subtle nose.
A little bit of bananas in there. Hopefully you don't dislike it for the bananas.
Yeah, we've had that discussion before. And it's got a lot of legs, so when you talk, it's got a thicker viscosity, I think. Mm-hmm. And again, to me, that would go to a higher aged. It's got
depends
more.
on how much they proof it down, right? I mean, they
Fair
can always...
enough.
In the barrel, you have the water evaporate, and then they proof it back down. It may not have as much legs.
Well, boy, I pick up oak.
Yeah, oak
right off the bat.
Oak and continued banana.
See, I don't really pick that banana up. I'd get the leather. You've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. I pick up leather and oak, and there is a fruit back end on that I can't place. I will say, and I just picked up some caramel and vanilla. It's a complex whiskey.
Yeah. So
it's also fairly subtle, which makes me think possible it could be the Four Roses. But I think it's pretty strong. I'm going to go with that being the Dickel even before I try the other. But I'm going to be curious when we try
I agree. One. The other thing that would make you doubt that this is Dickel is unique in the sense that it is a Tennessee whiskey, bourbon. Well, we've had that argument, and we've just decided that before. But George Dickel is a Tennessee whiskey, and kind of I would liken it to the University of Tennessee Vanderbilt rivalry. George Dickel is not as popular as a Jack Daniels. Both made in Tennessee. Both the two distilleries are 20 miles apart. Cascade Hall.
They're very close.
Very close. Dickel, for whatever reason, does not have the popularity that Jack Daniels has, probably because Nicole didn't come along until just recently, and Jack Daniels
been obscurity.
Yeah, and so she's really brought it up. It has more prominence now, but Dickel is unique because it does a chilled filtering, then does the charcoal filtering. So it will do, chilled filtering. So you want to get the kind of it's not poison or bad stuff in there, but there's just particles in there that come through the distillation process. It would make your whiskey cloudy if they did not filter it. So how do we filter it? Traditionally, they do a chill filtering. Literally, they just cool it down to whatever cold temperature, and they take the skim off of it and get those impurities out. That's chill filtering. The bad problem with that is to take out the esters, the proteins. It typically gives the whiskey a less of a full mouth flavor. You think of a Old Fitzgerald, the ones we've tasted before, that full mouth taste, that is a non-chilled filtered, and so it leaves that in there. So Dickel will chill filter it, but then it turns around and does the Lincoln County process of charcoal filtering like Jack Daniel's does. And so it does both. And they're unique in that process. I don't know of another whiskey offhand that does both, but they do.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I've heard that experts can't tell the difference between chill filter and non-chill filter. You may be right that you take a little bit of that full mouth feel away. And it could be that Dickel was hurt just by the name, as fun as it is to say Dickel, but their high school expression was, a little Dickel, do you? I didn't make that up, but, people have said that with regard to George Dickel whiskey.
But this has a more of a full mouth fill.
Oh, absolutely.
Than I would expect from something that's been chill filtered. That's where I was going with that. I didn't really
for 17 years, well, I'm going to try the other. Let's move on. What we're guessing before we even taste is the Four Roses. It is much lighter color, and on the nose,
nothing.
Yeah, talk about subtle. You're right. I wouldn't even know that the glass had anything in it if you've blindfolded me.
Yeah.
Talk about blinded. It would be absolutely nothing on the nose.
Light yellow, very soft. It's subtle leather and wood, a hint of vanilla. But it's if somebody would like a lighter whiskey, lighter bourbon, this would hit the mark. It is it's subtle all the way through. It's more aqueous, less the unctuous, less oily, more aqueous.
Which would be water.
Water, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, you didn't understand what aqueous was?
It took me a minute to think. I had to do aqua and all that stuff,
There you go.
to get to the root. So
yeah, I'm probably
took me a minute.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all on the porch. We have plenty of time.
I inadvertently took a full mouth pour, not necessarily a full mouth fill to it, but that's the Four Roses, for sure, and it is. And I'll give it credit. I really like smooth whiskey, and I will say it does not have a lot of complexity.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah,
but I like it. It's smooth.
Yeah. No, this is good sipping whiskey.
If
but
you want to drink
complex.
it neat, man, this is the way to go.
It's a little milk toast.
I was about to say you're going to come up with that word again.
Yeah, I got punished last time for using that description of one of your favorites, but it's a little milk toast. It's not complex enough.
No, it is. The first thing I thought of when I drank it was it is reminiscent of the Jack Daniel's Gold No. 27, which was a Jeff Arnett production. We hope to have him on the show to talk about that. It's a maple aged whiskey, and so it does pick up a little of that sweetness as a result, but it's very smooth. There's not a lot going on with it, and this reminds me so much of that.
I agree. Totally agree.
As a result, I think it's really good. But if you're looking for something that's rich and got some body to it, this ain't it, but I like it.
Yeah.
And I would probably say I prefer this over the Dickel 17.
Oh, you're killing me.
But it does lack that character. So they're just two completely different animals. But if we are guessing, I'm pretty confident in saying that the first one we tried is the George Dickel. The next one is the Four Roses.
Buy something.
And are we at that point where we're going to find out? Our producer.
This is buy something with credit. make the bet as big as you can.
Yes.
This is the first one we tasted was definitely the Dickel, the 17-year-old Dickel. The second was Four Roses. Oh,
And by the way, the Four Roses.
Huff Daddy, for those who couldn't hear, I don't know if they could hear Huff Daddy in the background there, but he said we were correct.
We are right. We're not experts.
Well, Bond Pig finds an acorn every
now and then, and we both got it right. So the Four Roses, yes, it is.
Thank you.
An international sale, so you're going to find that in a duty-free shop as you travel the world, and it's about $75-$80 a bottle, so not terribly expensive versus that Dickel, which is $250-ish.
But I would add to the panache to it. It'd be nice to pick up something that nobody else has.
Right.
Your buddies come over. Most likely, they would never had that before. So.
I would say that no one is going to object to the Four Roses. They may not love it, but there's not going to be an objection to it. Whereas that Dickel, because it's rich enough that there may be an objection. Somebody may go, "Ooh, that's a lot. That's too much going on for me. That's too bold. It's too whatever." And I could see that.
It's kind of like milk toast.
No. Yeah, the Dickel's got, I think, enough oak that people might be a little bit turned off by it.
All right, fair enough. I agree with that.
Yeah, whereas the other is not going to offend.
So if
you're going out with your Democrat and Republican friends, you don't want to offend either one, bring them the Four Roses Super Premium.
There you go. Be more cultured. Say this came from Japan.
That's right. That's right. Got this on my international travels.
If my gauge for success, though, was if I had my own distillery, it would be closer to the mark of the George Dickel than the Four Roses Super Premium. I love Four Roses, but that's a different product there.
Let's talk about going back to that idea of success. So, I look at the opportunity, and I tried to instill this in our children, that you want to create opportunities for yourself, right? Because if you don't know what you want to do, most kids do not. Most kids are not, 12 years old wanting to be a doctor. My stepdaughter did. She was probably that age when she was inclined to pursue that, and she's in medical school today. But most kids don't. And I think the idea is do well enough in whatever task you're given or academic pursuit that you have opportunities to make choices, right? Mm-hmm. And then as your passions begin to reveal themselves, if you've got an opportunity to work in your passion, man, you're blessed to do that.
Absolutely.
But it also may mean that your daily job is not necessarily within your passion, but you're able to pay to pursue those passions.
Yeah.
Or you get to pursue some of those passions within the job. If you really have a passion for teaching and you don't want to be in a classroom with kids, well, you may get a chance to do that if you're managing teams or if you're a trainer in a corporate environment. There are a number of different ways to pursue and utilize what you're gifted with and what you want to do within a number of different environments. And I think too, success is defined by how much money you make. And we've talked about this before. Our friend Billy Volek, when he was playing ball, we knew what his contract was. He was making a good bit of money, but there were other people making more. That's a score that you can never get ahead on because somebody always has more.
Well, it's like the great philosopher Eric Church said, money ain't rich. And I think, and I think I think most people are guilty of that because our society says the richer you are, the more successful you are. Howard Hughes was famous for saying, "How much money do you need?" And he said $1 more. But it's empty. You get there, and it's not all that. You find you get there, you obtain whatever you thought was enough money, and it just leaves you empty. And you can see that. Jim Carrey once was famous for saying, "I wish everybody could be rich and realize that it's not that great." And Jim Carrey, the actor, marvelously rich. He's very talented, and he was very insightful in that. You get there, and it's a letdown.
Yeah, I think back to my mother recently passed. We had her funeral. She lived to be 95, so her friends aren't coming, right? They're gone by that point. So there were a handful of people there that she had mentored over the years, spent some time with, but it was primarily friends of mine and my siblings, right? And because they love us.
Yeah.
And that was really
Respect for you.
special to see that. Now, when my dad died 14 years ago, so he was in his early 80s, and he still had a handful of contemporaries. And it was really special to see childhood friends that he had known since birth.
Wow.
Yeah, there were two neighbors that he grew up with and kept up with all of his life. And he who has friends is never poor. You know,
Yeah.
that's a paraphrase of some words people have used. And I think, how do you define success? And I think if you've built friendships, you've done something right, you
Yeah.
know?
Absolutely. Ultimately, it comes down to is and it's hard to define. What is your definition of success? There was this silly game that I remember playing back in junior high. Junior high youth group back at church, and basically the game was they cut out all this construction paper, different colors, and the purpose of the game was just collect whatever color you want, and at the end we'll see who wins. And so there's construction paper of all different colors, and okay, great. People, you would trade with you would be given a sack of cut out squares, and you would trade. Okay, I'll trade you my blue for your red, and at the end of the game, they said, okay, basically everybody who has a red color, that's worth this much. That's the most valuable one, and everyone has a blue color is the next one, and so forth. The meaning of the game is that different people value different things for different reasons, but at the end of the day, only certain things had value. And I think that's true with life, is that as we go through, especially as a teenager, your evaluation is, can I go out with a pretty cheerleader? Do I have the coolest car? Man, I want to be rich when I get older. As we mature and gain wisdom through experience, we gain wisdom. We realize that money ain't rich. That possessions really leave you lacking. That emptiness in your heart is not filled by material things. It's filled with lots of other things, like finding your purpose in God in this life. And I think a big part of that is friends, fellowship, family. It's why we're on the porch together, is because this is what gives us fulfillment. And you can't get that through material things. But man, we constantly get distracted by that in your life. There's this shiny thing over there. And we've talked about this before. I would love to have a 1962 Ferrari GTO. Oh, that'd be awesome, right? I mean, that'll set you back a few $1 million.
I was going to say, Jason, you could have one.
No, I cannot. I've got too many kids in higher education, and I would hope my God-given wisdom would keep me from splurging on that. I mean, there's a point where you can't take it with you, so if you got it, okay, great, go for it. But certainly you would not get that as a fulfillment thing, because at the end of the day, like I just said, it's going to leave you lacking. They've done studies of like happiness in the world, and the United States, who as a general population has the most possessions of anybody in the world, they're consistently ranked lower in happiness. While other people, poorer nations, Africa, different countries in Africa, have the least, and they're some of the highest happiness. I think that alludes to the fact that that natural hole in our heart cannot be filled by material things. And so our definition, where I'm going with this, is our definition for success. It gets refined in time with age, because we realize what things are really important and which things are not.
Yeah, I think the pursuit is contentment. And I think if you can learn to be content in whatever situation you find yourself, and I'm paraphrasing Paul in the New Testament, then if you can find contentment, then in whatever situation, then it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have, or where you live or don't live. I think what matters is that you can learn to be content, and that's different than happy, right? That's an abiding kind of a sense about where you are in the world and who you are in the world. Your identity is not tied up in what you do. It's tied up in whose you are. If you're a Christian, you belong to God, and so I think that's really the compelling drive forward. And so when I'm at the age I am now, looking at, man, I hope to retire in a few years, and I would love the opportunity to, if we are continuing to do something like this, or I have the opportunity to teach history, and I pursued a passion there. I got a master's degree in history in my 50s.
Very impressive, by the way.
Well, and not because it benefited me in any way. It just was something I was so interested in that I thought I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Huge sense of accomplishment for me to do that. And I would love the chance to utilize that. But if I don't, I'm not going to consider that I failed. I'm going to be grateful if I do, but I'm also going to hopefully be grateful in whatever circumstance I find myself in.
Yeah. So God has gifted you intellectually into that pursuit. I think that's...
Although I don't know words like unctuous or aqueous.
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 Yeah, something like that. But that's, whatever. It's not...
Like a true friend, you correct me.
Exactly, because I love you that much. But yeah, there's we're all the body of Christ. We all have different purposes. And so to say that one part of the body is more important than the other, that's not correct. So it doesn't make a difference how smart you are, how dumb you are. The way to fill that hole in your heart is fulfilling your purpose that God has for you. And that's showing my Christian bias. I'm a Christian. And so where's your plumb line? What alluding back to that story I told, it's like, what color construction paper, which means nothing, what color did you feel more important? Well, and that's what you collected. The same thing is what in this life do you feel is most important? Where are your core values? And that is a super hard question. For me, being a Christian, and I know this is for you as well, but it's finding that purpose of God in your life, and that's the only way you're going to be content.
Right.
And I would even go so far as contentment in God is true riches or wealth, I should say.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Now, I will say that we live in a time and in a country, and in a time in our country, where we can have that discussion. If you were to roll the clock back to the Gilded Age of the, post-Civil War through World War I era, we really wouldn't have the opportunity to have that discussion. If you were a physician, you would be underpaid. It was not considered a professional class, if you will. You had an extraordinarily wealthy group of people that owned most of the industry. And then you had everybody else who was just working 7 days a week, 6 days a week, no such thing as a weekend. And they worked ungodly hours. Children worked. There weren't child labor laws until the turn of the last century. And there was no time to have that discussion because it was eat, rest if you could, and do it again the next day because you're working, 12 to 18 hours a day. And that was life.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to ponder that is really a different age in which we live. And there are plenty of countries out there where they may be perfectly content and they're still living that life of survival, that day-to-day making ends meet. And so it's interesting that we just even get to have this type of discussion and the time to ponder that.
I agree.
And I'm grateful for it, as I am for the opportunity to taste amazing whiskeys, spend time with you on the porch, and everyone listening and watching.
Yeah, this has been a great time. Really enjoyed this George Dickel. And so it's nothing better than hanging out with my friends, sitting on the porch. So thank you for being with us. Become part of our friend group. Comment, like, be sure to subscribe, and let us know what you think about Two Guys on a Porch. Come again.
Life is much better with friends, a drink and cigar, and some two guys on a porch swag.
Let us know what your drink and cigar of choice is at twoguysonaporch.com, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get some Two Guys on a Porch swag